Imagine for a moment that you are swimming in the ocean. But this isn't. This isn't a tropical vacation spot. The water is churning. It is absolutely infested with sharks. And the water itself, it's turning bloody because everyone, and I mean every single creature in that water, is fighting over the same shrinking supply of food. It is a frantic, high-stress fight for survival.
That is a visceral and honestly a pretty terrifying image to start a deep dive with. But in the context of business, it's unfortunately very accurate.
It's graphic, I know. But now I want you to sort of pan the camera over. Imagine a different part of the ocean. It's wide open. The water is crystal clear, a deep, calm blue. There are no sharks. There's no fighting. It's just open space waiting to be explored.
And that right there is the central metaphor of the book we are breaking down today. Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chan Kim and Renée Mauborgne.
This book is an absolute titan. It's been translated into dozens of languages, sold millions of copies, and it's basically required reading in almost every MBA program on Earth. But, and I have to be honest here, the promise it makes sounds almost too good to be true. It basically claims that the best way to win the game of business isn't to beat the competition, it's to stop the fight altogether.
It sounds so counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because we are trained literally from school sports days to corporate boardrooms to think about winning as a zero-sum game. Market share is a war. If I gain, you lose. But the core premise here is that competing head-to-head, trying to be slightly cheaper or slightly better than the guy next door, that's a trap. That's the red ocean.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to get out of that bloody water. We want to understand how companies can reconstruct market boundaries to create entirely new demand. We're talking about making the competition irrelevant rather than just beating them by a percentage point.
Exactly. And just to ground this before we get too abstract, Kim and Renée didn't just, philosophize this into existence. They analyzed over 150 strategic moves across 30 industries, spanning from 1880 to 2000. So what we're discussing is based on a massive historical data set.
Okay, let's start with the landscape. We have the red ocean and the blue ocean. We touched on the sharks, but practically speaking, if I'm a manager or an entrepreneur, how do I know if I'm swimming in a red ocean?
You know you're in a red ocean when the industry boundaries are defined and accepted. Everyone knows the rules of the game. If you're in the airline industry, you know you compete on price, routes, and maybe legroom.
So it's a known quantity. If I'm selling cars, I know I need 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and I need to be either faster, safer, or cheaper than Ford or Toyota.
Precisely. And here is the economic reality of the red ocean. As the market gets crowded, prospects for profits and growth they decline. Products turn into commodities.
And when products become commodities, price becomes the only differentiator.
Right. That's the bloody fight. You are slashing margins just to stay alive.
Okay, so the red ocean is the status quo. What is the technical definition of the blue ocean then? Is it just inventing something new?
Not exactly. The blue ocean is defined as all the industries not in existence today. It is unknown market space. In a blue ocean, demand isn't fought over, it is created. So there is ample opportunity for growth that is both profitable and rapid because the rules of the game haven't been set yet.
That sounds lovely, but I have to play devil's advocate here. It also sounds incredibly rare. I mean, how often does a totally new industry actually pop up? Most of us are stuck selling insurance or software in crowded markets.
It feels rare because we focus on the existing industries.
Yeah.
But look back. 30 years ago, the mobile app industry didn't exist. The discount aviation industry was barely a thing. The authors argue that blue oceans are constantly being created. But, and this is a really crucial point, they challenge the way we usually study success. Let me ask you, do you think there is such a thing as a permanently excellent company?
I'd want to say yes. You think of the giants, General Electric, Apple, maybe even Google now?
You'd think so. But history suggests otherwise. The book references famous studies like In Search of Excellence and Built to Last. A lot of the model companies in those books eventually failed or fell way behind. Remember when Yahoo was the ruler of the internet? Or when Nokia was untouchable?
Fair point. So the authors are saying don't worship the company.
Exactly. They argue there are no permanently excellent companies or industries. So the unit of analysis shouldn't be the company, it should be the strategic move.
The strategic move.
Right, a set of managerial actions and decisions involved in making a major market-creating business offering. You can be a great company and make a bad move, or a struggling company and make a brilliant move. We want to study the move that created the blue ocean.
Okay, I like that distinction. It takes the hero worship out of it and focuses on the action. So let's get into the how. What is the logic behind a blue ocean move? If I want to make one, is it just about having the best technology? Do I need to invent the next iPhone?
Not at all. In fact, blue oceans are rarely about bleeding-edge technology. They are about a concept called value innovation. This is the cornerstone of the whole philosophy.
Value innovation. I feel like I'm in a boardroom and someone is using buzzwords to avoid answering a question. You have to break that down for me.
It's substantial, I promise. Think about conventional strategy dogma. It's usually a binary choice, a trade-off. You can either create greater value for the customer at higher cost.
Or reasonable value at a lower cost.
Exactly, the old differentiation versus cost leadership debate. You're either the premium option, like a Rolex, or the budget option, like a Timex. But blue ocean creators break that trade-off. They pursue differentiation and low cost simultaneously.
Okay, stop there. That sounds impossible. Basic economics and frankly common sense says that if I make something better, it costs me more to produce. Higher quality materials, better talent, more features. How can you be better and cheaper?
You do it by being very, very selective about what better means. You don't just upgrade everything. You ruthlessly cut the things the industry competes on that customers don't actually value, and you invest heavily in the things they do.
Give me a concrete example, because my brain is still stuck on you get what you pay for.
Okay, let's look at the classic case study from the book, Cirque du Soleil.
Okay, I know Cirque. Acrobats, music, very artsy.
Right. But go back to the 1980s when they started. The circus industry was dying. It was a miserable red ocean. Kids were more interested in video games and TV. Animal rights groups were attacking the use of animals, and the costs were astronomical.
Because you had to feed elephants, transport lions, and hire star clowns and performers.
Exactly. Shrinking audience, rising costs, a classic death spiral. Now, Cirque du Soleil didn't try to be a better circus. They didn't try to steal customers from Ringling Bros by having 3 elephants instead of 2, or hiring slightly more famous clowns.
They reinvented the circus.
They created a new market space. They realized that the circus didn't have to be just for kids. They could target adults and corporate clients who were willing to pay theater prices, which are much, much higher than a circus ticket.
But to justify that price to an adult, they had to change the product. You can't just charge $100 to see a sad lion.
Correct. This is value innovation in action. Let's look at the cost side first. To drive costs down, they eliminated the most expensive elements of the circus.
No animals.
No animals. That's a huge cost saving in transport, food, insurance. They also eliminated star performers. In a traditional circus, the star demanded a huge salary. In Cirque, the show's the star. They also cut the 3-ring setup.
Oh, I hated the 3-ring setup. You never knew where to look.
Exactly. It was costly, and it diluted the audience's attention. So they cut all that. Costs go way down. But then, to drive value-up differentiation, they added elements from the theater, a storyline, intellectual richness, artistic music and dance, lighting design.
So they lowered their costs by cutting the expensive junk that didn't matter to their new adult audience, the animals and the stars, and increased the value by adding culture and art.
Precisely. They made the competition irrelevant because Ringling Bros literally couldn't compete with them. If Ringling cut their animals, they weren't a circus anymore. If they added theater, they confused their kid audience. Cirque wasn't even playing the same sport.
I love that. It's not about beating them. It's about making them wonder where you went. But how do we actually do this? It feels like Cirque just had a stroke of artistic genius. If I'm running a software company or a coffee shop, are there tools I can use?
Fortunately, yes. It's not just magic. The authors provide a diagnostic tool called the strategy canvas.
Okay, visuals are hard on audio, but paint the picture for us.
Imagine a simple line graph. The horizontal axis, the bottom line lists one, lists the factors the industry currently competes on. For a circus, that would be animal shows, star performers, multiple rings, concessions, price. The vertical axis is the offering level, high or low. How much does the company invest in that factor?
So for a traditional circus, the dot for animals would be very high.
Right, and the dot for price would be low. Now, if you plotted every major circus in the 1980s on this graph, what would it look like?
They'd all look pretty much the same. High animals, high stars, low price.
Exactly. The lines would converge. That is a visual representation of a red ocean. To create a blue ocean, you need a divergent curve. You need a line that looks completely different. And to get that, you use the 4 actions framework.
Okay, walk us through the 4 actions. This is the checklist, right?
It's the framework to reconstruct value. You have to look at those factors on the graph and ask 4 questions. Number 1, eliminate. Which factors that the industry takes for granted should be eliminated? Often these are things that no longer have value, but cost a fortune.
Like the animals for Cirque. Got it. Kill the dead weight. Number 2.
Reduce. Which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard? Maybe you're over-designing something that customers don't actually care about that much.
So maybe in a hotel, it's the front desk reception if everyone just wants to check in on their phone?
Exactly. Why spend millions on a marble lobby if your customer just wants to get to the room? Then we go the other way, adding value. Number 3, raise. Which factor should be raised well above the industry standard? Where are customers forced to compromise?
And finally,
Number 4, create. Which factor should be created that the industry has never offered?
this is the Eliminate, Reduce, Raise, Create grid, the ERC grid. It forces you to actually make choices rather than just saying, we need to be better at everything.
Which is the most common strategic mistake. If you just try to raise everything, your costs explode and you go bankrupt. You have to eliminate and reduce to fund the creating and raising.
Let's apply this grid to another example because I think it really clicks when you see it in a different industry. Let's talk about wine, specifically yellowtail.
This is one of my favorite examples because the wine industry is, well, it's notoriously snobby and difficult to break into.
So set the context. The U.S. wine market in the 90s.
Hyper-competitive red ocean. You had 1,600 wineries, and they all competed on the same things: prestige, vineyard history, aging quality, and complexity.
And the budget wines just tried to mimic the expensive wines, but tasted worse.
Precisely. But here's the problem the industry ignored. Ordinary people, the mass market, found wine intimidating.
Yeah.
It was pretentious. You stand in the aisle, you don't know what a Channon is, you don't know if the 1998 vintage is good or trash, and you feel judged.
I have absolutely been that person, staring at a label, pretending to read the French, and then just buying the one with the nice font.
We all have. So Casella Wines, the Australian makers of Yellowtail, looked at this and applied the 4 actions. Eliminate. They cut out any analogical terminology. No talk of tannins, oak aging, or soil quality. They eliminated the marketing focus on prestige and vineyard history. Reduce. They reduced wine complexity. And crucially, they reduced the variety. They started with just 2 wines. 1 red, a Shiraz, and 1 white, a Chardonnay.
That makes it so much easier to choose. I don't have to pick between a Merlot, a Pinot, a Cab, and a Zinfandel, just red.
Right. It removes the analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Then raise. Interestingly, they raised the price versus the budget jug wines. They sold it for $6.99, which was double the price of the cheap stuff.
But still affordable. It wasn't $20.
Exactly. It was an accessible luxury. And finally, create. They created ease of drinking. The wine was sweet, fruity, soft. It actually tasted closer to a beer or a ready-to-drink cocktail than a traditional tannic wine. And they created ease of selection with that bright, simple label with the kangaroo.
It looked fun. It didn't look like a castle in France.
They created a sense of adventure and approachability.
And the result was massive.
The fastest-growing brand in U.S. history at the time. And here's the key insight. They didn't just steal customers from other wineries. They stripped demand from beer and cocktail drinkers. They brought people into the wine market who previously thought wine was too highbrow for them.
They didn't need a huge promo campaign explaining why their grapes were superior. The product sold itself because it solved the intimidation problem.
Exactly. And if you look at Yellowtail or Cirque or even Southwest Airlines, the authors identify 3 characteristics of a good strategy. If you're listening and working on your own business plan, check it against these 3 things.
Okay, lay them on me. What's the litmus test?
First is focus. A good strategy doesn't try to do everything. Southwest focuses on 3 things: friendly service, speed, and frequent point-to-point departures. They don't do meals, they don't do lounges, they don't do interline baggage transfers.
They know what they are, and more importantly, what they aren't.
Second is divergence. If you draw their strategy canvas, the line looks completely different from the competitors. Southwest pioneered point-to-point travel between mid-sized cities, while everyone else was doing the hub-and-spoke system through big airports.
And the third.
A compelling tagline. A good strategy has a clear message. For Southwest, it was essentially the speed of a plane at the price of a car whenever you need it.
That's good. If your strategy takes a 30-slide PowerPoint to explain, you probably don't have a strategy.
The authors call that a spaghetti strategy. Just lines going everywhere on the graph, trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. High cost, no clear vision.
So we've talked about the internal work reducing, eliminating. But how do we spot these opportunities in the wild? It's easy to say, create a blue ocean, but where do you look? The book talks about reconstructing market boundaries.
This is critical. Most companies get tunnel vision. They look at their direct competitors. To find a blue ocean, you have to stop looking at your competitors and start looking across alternatives.
Now wait, you said alternatives, not substitutes. That sounds like semantic hair splitting. What's the difference?
It sounds subtle, but it's a vital distinction. Substitutes have different forms but the same function, like tax software versus a pencil. They both let you calculate your taxes. If the price of software goes up, you might buy a pencil. Alternatives have different functions but the same purpose.
Give me a concrete example.
Imagine you want a nice night out with your partner. You could go to the cinema. Or you could go to a restaurant. Those are alternatives. They're totally different functions. One is visual entertainment, one is gastronomic, but they serve the same purpose. A pleasant night out, bonding, relaxation.
Okay, I see. So you aren't just competing with other movie theaters, you're competing with restaurants and bowling alleys.
Exactly. And the blue ocean is often found in the space between these alternatives. A great case study here is NetJets.
The private jet company?
Right. They revolutionized the private aviation market by looking across alternatives. Before NetJets, corporate travelers had two choices. Alternative one, commercial airlines business or first class. What are the pros?
It's relatively cheap. You pay for the ticket, you fly.
And the cons?
It's slow, check-in lines, security, layovers, unreliable schedules, and you have to fly to big airports, which might be far from your meeting.
Right. Now, alternative two, corporate jet ownership.
Yeah.
You buy your own plane. Pros.
Fast, flexible, point to point. You leave when you want. Incredibly expensive. We're talking $6 million plus to buy the jet, plus the pilot, maintenance, and the deadhead costs of flying it empty to come pick you up.
So you're either stuck in a security line at O'Hare wasting hours, or you're spending millions of dollars.
Yeah.
There was no middle ground. NetJets observed why people chose one over the other. People chose commercial for the cost. They chose private for the speed and flexibility.
So they matched them together.
NetJets created a blue ocean. Fractional ownership. You don't buy this jet. You buy 1/16 of a jet.
Like a timeshare for the sky?
Exactly. For, say, $375,000 plus operating costs, you get 50 hours of flight time a year. That's accessible compared to $6 million. But, and this is the key, you get access to a fleet of jets that fly to 5,500 airports compared to the limited number of commercial hubs.
So you get the speed of private saving literally hours of travel time at a cost that a corporate board can actually justify.
The book highlights a specific route, Washington, D.C. to Sacramento. On a commercial flight with transfers and check-ins, that's about 10.5 hours. With NetJets, 5.2 hours. That is immense value for a highly paid executive. They combine the best of both worlds by looking across alternatives.
It seems so obvious in hindsight, doesn't it? Just look at what the other guys are doing and take the best bits. But why is it so hard to do?
Because we get trapped in our industry silos. We spend all our time looking at what our direct competitors are doing with their prices. We worry about benchmarking. And we miss the fact that our customers are actually debating between us and a totally different solution.
So let's bring this home. Blue ocean strategy isn't about just being creative or waiting for lightning to strike. It's a discipline framework.
It is. It's a process.
Yeah.
Step one, look at the red ocean, the sharks, the blood, the commodities. Acknowledge that fighting there is a losing game. Step two, reject the trade-off. Stop believing you have to choose between high value and low cost.
Step three, use the strategy canvas. Draw the graph. See where everyone else is converging. Step four, use the 4 actions. Eliminate the costly junk. Reduce the over-engineered stuff. Raise the things people hate compromising on. And create something entirely new.
And throughout all of this, look across alternatives, not just substitutes. Focus on non-customers. That's the synthesis. It's a shift in mindset. It's moving from beat the competitor to make the competitor irrelevant.
And for you, the learner listening to this, I want you to think about your own career or your own business. Are you swimming in a red ocean? Are you just trying to be slightly faster, slightly smarter, or slightly cheaper than the person sitting next to you?
Or are you looking at the non-customers, the people who aren't buying from your industry at all? That's where the growth is.
We mentioned at the start that history shows industries are constantly being created. 100 years ago, there was no aviation industry. 30 years ago, no mobile phones. AI is creating new industries as we speak.
This raises an important question for everyone listening. If you look 20 years into the future, how many industries that don't exist today will be dominating the world?
And more importantly, will you be the one to create one of them?
That is the ultimate blue ocean question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
A pleasure.
See you in the open water.